Hi, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining Patrick and me today. We want to talk a little about Filestore, its role with SAP, and learn a little bit more about Sabre's modernization journey. With that, my name is Sean Derrington, product management here at Google Cloud, and joining me today is Patrick Uckermark. Patrick,
Thanks, Sean. My name is Patrick Uckermark. I'm Senior Director Enterprise Architecture at Sabre. And back to you, Sean.
thanks, Patrick. So we want to talk about a few things today. One, where's my stuff? So as you look at the application portfolio and the journey to the cloud, what are the storage architectures that you can choose from and where to think about using each of them appropriately? We'll also talk about the Filestore product family, how it fits into SAP and GKE workloads. And then most importantly, we'll hear from Patrick a little bit later about sharing about Sabre and their experiences. So with that, let's take a look at where's my stuff. So as you take a look at the application portfolio and you think about running things on premises in a hybrid environment to the cloud, or as even just running all in the cloud, there are a lot of different storage options that you have. Within Google Cloud, our mission is really to leverage our global infrastructure to provide an easy to use and a highly available storage for all of your workloads. Within Google, we support 9 different applications that support over 1 billion users each. It's that same underlying storage technology between cloud storage and persistent disk that we also make available to you as an enterprise to run your business on. Whether it be persistent disk at different price points for capacity and performance, to Google Cloud Storage, where we're looking at different price points for access frequency and retention requirements. I'll talk about Filestore in a minute, but on the right-hand side, from the data protection side, Actifia will actually protect your applications and databases. You can also protect the native storage through snapshots and backups, as an example. But as broad as this portfolio is, we do have an open ecosystem approach. And if you're a company looking to run in a hybrid mode and you're a NetApp or a Dell customer and you have their storage on premises, you can absolutely go through the marketplace, procure that storage, deploy it in a hybrid model on-prem and in the cloud, and enjoy a lot of those same benefits. You can obviously deploy it 100% in the cloud if you want to. If you're in the high performance computing space and you need a parallel file system based upon those types of workloads, you can absolutely do that with DDN, who's available also in the marketplace through their parallel file system offering. And these are just a few examples of storage partners that we have in our ecosystem that are available through the marketplace. So let's take a look at Filestore and the product family that we have. Taking a look, Filestore is a managed NFS file service. It's a broad range of use cases. On the left-hand side of the chart here, you see Filestore Basic, really suited for file serving, web serving, test dev environments. You can scale up to 64 terabytes in a file system. You can even back up those files if you want to within the region. The middle high scale is actually oriented and designed for high performance computing workloads, whether that be pharma and genomic sequencing or financial services like quantitative analysis trading. You can have higher capacity requirements up to 100 terabytes and even higher performance requirements of 25 gigabytes per second of throughput. But based upon the HPC requirements, those storage capacities can ebb and flow over time. And so you can actually grow and shrink your storage capacity as needed. We've also recently introduced Filestore Enterprise, which is designed for SAP and GKE workloads. This is something that you can also grow and shrink over time. But not only does it support GKE and SAP, but it also supports those lift and shift applications that you're going to move from on-prem into the cloud. But we've also focused on the protection side of things. So snapshots to be able to recover your data, but also making sure that data is highly available with a 4.9 SLA associated with that. And this is actually one of the things that differentiates Filestore Enterprise is to give you that trust and that confidence to run in a native and in really important applications in the cloud. But it's also an opportunity to take a look at simplifying your operations with other cloud services. So within Google Cloud, you leverage the same identity and access management, the same billing. When you're monitoring and managing your network and compute and storage, you can do so consistently through our cloud operations suite. We also give you simplified operations to do things consistently over and over, because ultimately that's going to drive down your costs and deliver more benefit. Right? Within Filestore, the diverse application requirements you may have may mean that Basic is a better application, a better file storage solution than High Scale or Enterprise. But whatever the case may be, you can manage all of those consistently with the same APIs, the same G-Cloud CLI you can use. So again, from an operational standpoint, regardless of which applications are consuming what file store type, the operations are consistent. And that protection for regional availability is actually something unique to Filestore Enterprise and really important because We all know if you think about deploying on an on-prem environment, three dual controllers that are scale up, and you try to set up a campus-based three-way synchronous replication, we all know how difficult that is to make sure all those London volumes are associated and mirrored correctly. But with Filestore Enterprise, you have a few radio buttons. You click the capacity, you select the region, and underneath the covers, because it's a managed service, we actually replicate that synchronously to three different zones within the region, which means that you now have an RPO of 0. But it also means that you have an RTO of 0. The same My File System access point that you're using for an application running in Zone A would just get the files from Zone B and C if there's an interruption. So not only is it protecting your information by synchronously replicating it, it's making it seamless that your applications and users don't know that anything has changed if a zone is interrupted. Now, in the case of a file deletion, or you're doing test dev and you want to roll that file system back to a prior recovery point, you can do that with our snapshots. And regardless of the capacity of the file system, up to 10 terabytes, you can recover an individual file or the entire file system in less than 10 minutes. So if you want to give your users the ability to recover an individual file, you can absolutely do that. But you can also have, as a cloud ops team, roll back a file system in less than 10 minutes. And from a snapshot perspective and regional availability perspective, these are some of the things that really is interesting and what SADA is looking for. SADA is one of our key partners. They actually are 3 years running Partner of the Year. And Miles Ward, the CTO there, is really looking to help companies migrate from their data centers into Google Cloud. And that's not done all overnight. They move certain applications over time. And as they modernize those applications and they look at GKE, they need something that's going to be able to support that from a fully managed, very easy to manage cloud native file service. But also the availability side of things for those critical applications. You can't decrease what you're actually delivering to the business once you move things to the cloud. And that's really one of the things that regional availability is interesting for SADA. So with that, we talked about different workloads, and I mentioned that earlier that Filestore Enterprise is really designed for SAP and GKE specifically. And within SAP, it's a three-tier architecture, right? You have your database tier, and you have your compute, and you want to have the fast-performing storage there. And that's what we provide with persistent disk. But you're also concerned about zone separation for your database servers. And so you want to have your compute, the database, as close to the persistent disk as possible. And that's fine and good and certainly important. But it's also important to think about that middle tier, the application servers. And so when you're thinking about designing NetWeaver, having the zone separation for your file servers, for your application servers is just as important because all those application servers have consistent access to Filestore, right? And so whether the application server in zone A is accessing the data or zone B, it doesn't matter because again, coming back to that mount point, it's the same regardless of which zone within a region your NetWeaver is deployed in. So you have the high availability for the shared executables down in the lower right corner of the slide there. The other examples here between transport and interface directories, those are also important, but the shared executables is one of the key considerations for designing SAP and Filestore. A lot of organizations are looking at GKE, and it's certainly popular for stateless applications, right? Ephemeral storage, the application dies, the storage dies, it doesn't matter, you just rebuild your pod and you're off and running. But more and more, when you look at how to design that, you've got to consider persistent disk, right? It could be local SSD, but also persistent disk. Again, different choice of price and performance there. But more and more organizations are actually running stateful applications. And those stateful applications now require storage that can be accessible if you have a failover from one pod to the other, or you need to protect that data to recover it in the event of a failure. It's no longer ephemeral, it's stateful. And so this is one of the things that we've done with not only the snapshots, but the regional availability that impact how you can run GKE workloads through our CSI driver. And this is actually an option for both Filestore Basic and Enterprise. Again, coming back to choices between price, performance, and features, you as an enterprise get to choose what's going to be best suited for you. And if that choice is object storage with cloud storage, that's fine too. You have standard and archive tiers that choose from based on access frequency and retention periods. So with that, let me turn over to Patrick to share a little bit more about Sabre and the journey that you're undergoing. Patrick?
Thank you, Sean. We at Sabre, we do have a long-term strategic partnership with Google to support our cloud migrations and technical transformation of our application portfolio. As part of this, we decided to define a cloud native strategy, which means we're trying to adopt as many of the cloud native services that Google provides to us to eliminate the manual overhead as part of our applications and to become more agile and flexible in our application deployments as well. One of the areas where the Filestore service is very obvious to be used on our side is SAP, which has a strong demand on performance, flexibility, and also requires, in order to provide a high availability setup, the shared executable features, which were lacking in some other environments in the cloud. And this hinders our increased availability, which we now can address with the service in GCP. Another area where we're also strongly considering the service and we're seeing a lot of benefits in doing so is GKE. We traditionally started with stateless applications as much as possible, but over time we saw teams spinning up a lot of stateful parts of that outside of the cluster to make sure we have the reliability. But PVs with the Filestore enterprise service will allow us to support that inside the container environment, being most efficient with the teams and getting most of the environment. And for our travel solutions and hospitality solutions applications, we are migrating out of the existing on-premise data centers with their workloads towards the cloud. And one of the bigger challenges is meeting those technical requirements they have in an on-premise environment today in their current form or fashion and meet this somehow in the cloud. We are trying to avoid moving as is, but also adding complexity in doing so. But a native service like Filestore will allow us to get rid of some of the manual overhead that we have in those teams and spend more time focusing on the actual tech transformation than really being busy with the migration and finding legacy technology replacements. And with that, the enterprise Filestore services will allow us to perform the migration in a less complex manner, but as part of this, still do a tech transformation and move more quickly into the cloud, allowing resources to be freed up and focus on the future of migration, on the tech transformation, and other applications as well. And with that, thanks everyone, and back to Sean.
Great. Thank you, Patrick. So we talked about a number of things, the Google Cloud portfolio and the breadth of storage offerings that we have to meet diverse application requirements from block to file to object, as well as our open ecosystem of other partners. Talked about SAP and GKE workloads and how we've engineered Filestore Enterprise to directly satisfy that with the high regional availability as well as the snapshot capability. And then perhaps most importantly, heard from Patrick about Sabre's journey to the cloud and how they're planning to use Filestore across a diverse portfolio of application requirements. With that, I'd like to thank everybody for attending today. I really appreciate the time and attention and enjoy the rest of the show.